everyone. Welcome back to my podcast, My Broken Hallelujah. I'm Missy Reed. And I thought on today's episode, we would talk about anger and what happens when you wear it as a coat of protection instead of letting it go, and how that can really invite bitterness into your life. I'm not saying that there isn't righteous anger when something horrible happens to you. There absolutely is. It's what happens when you take that anger and you essentially turn it outwards, and you turn it, really, it actually kind of turns into sin because it's something you're unwilling to let go of. And I know for a lot of people that's really hard to hear, and that's really hard to do. It was for me. But it's so essential, because what happens is you become this, in my experience, I can't say it happens all the time, but in my experience, what happens is you become this bitter person who really, I don't know, it's just this weird, like you always have a chip on your shoulder. You are quick to be the toughest one in the conversation. You're quick to be the one who is, I don't care. I don't care what they do. I don't care what they say. I don't care. I don't care. When really that's 9 times out of 10 not how you really feel. And you can quickly turn from friend to enemy or frenemy in the matter of a light switch. At least I know for myself I could. I wore my anger as a coat of armor and protection. I've stated this before about how angry I was most of my life from my abuse, and the women in my family, I mean, I can remember all the way back to my great grandmother, were just angry, and we were raised with anger, and our reaction was always in anger. And it just this cycle. And I would imagine it probably started before my great grandmother even. Her mother was probably the same way. I don't know. I never met the woman, and no one's actually ever told me stories about her or anything. And it could have originated from my great grandmother. Honestly, they had a very hard life, and she was not a happy person. There's so many stories I could tell, but her anger really, truly controlled her. And then it trickled onto her children and their children and their children. And it takes a lot to be able to be the one to stand up in your family and be a generational curse breaker. And then to add on all the abuse that I personally suffered in my childhood. Anger, if I could stay angry, it protected me. There would be a wall between me and whoever, and I could love you or hate you in a matter of minutes. And that's not right. And I'm not saying anger is wrong. I don't believe anger is wrong. I believe the Lord gave us all of our emotions to feel all of our emotions. It's be angry and sin not. And again, I know how hard it is. I've told the story of when the Lord said, I need you to give that up. I need you to not be angry, because I was so hard. There would be no way that I could convey the heart of Jesus to someone with the chip on my shoulder that I carried, and so willing to lash out. And I wouldn't just lash out. I could size a person up within the first 5 minutes of meeting them. And usually within an hour, if I needed to, I could go for the jugular and really hurt a person if they attacked me. And that's not, you can't convey Jesus that way. And you certainly can't tell your story of being healed and encounter of Jesus with that kind of anger. And when he asked me to give that up, it was probably the hardest thing I ever had to do because it truly insulated me and my heart from letting people in and hurting me. And that was really, I mean, it took me days to just agree to give it up. I I didn't know who I would be without the anger or how I would even really function in this world without the anger. It was a very strange feeling and it was very quiet in my mind when I finally surrendered and gave that up. And it wasn't like a quick, I'm instantly delivered of this anger. That actually wasn't what happened at all. It took me days, if not a couple of weeks. I can't remember the exact number of days it took to be completely delivered from that anger. And to this very day, that's been 5 years. And to this very day, I have to really watch and catch myself not to fall back into that because it's very, very easy for me to do that. And it's very, very easy for me to lose sight of the heart of God for people when they make you angry. It's very hard not to shoot the wall up. And sometimes you have to set boundaries with people because you know that they will trigger you. You know that their anger is something that they want to put back on you and they want you to feed off of it. And it's not that you don't love them, but you set boundaries with them. And that's another really hard thing to do. But what I want to talk about today is how that is hurting you and how that is really turned into a sin if the Lord is asking you to give that up, or you have an inkling that you need to give that up, but you won't. I think a lot of times, understandably so, people get very angry with God. I was very angry with God of how could you let this happen to me? And honestly, I kind of wanted him to continue to climb back up on the cross for everything that all these people did to me. You could take A, B, C, and D, and I needed you to get on that cross A, B, C, and D times. And it really, I can't tell you it was this aha moment where the lights went on and I just understood. But there was a moment that I knew, and I've known ever since then, that what happened to me was not God's will. What happened to me made him just as angry, if not more angry than it did me. But he's also not responsible for what happened to me. The blame lies on the people who didn't watch over me, the people who abused me, the people that hurt me. That is on them, not God. And while I was only 8 years old and I couldn't tell you what happened to those people, I didn't even know most of them. They have to answer for that, not me and not God. And I know that's so hard to accept because it was really hard for me to accept. But he does not have to be re-crucified every time you think about your abuse or you want to punish him or be angry with him over what happened. And I totally get it. But at some point, you have to stop trying to put him back on the cross for everything anyone's ever done to you. You have to sit down and say, this person did this and this was their fault. And I'm choosing to forgive them. I'm choosing to release them from that. Not for them. The vengeance is the Lord. He will handle whoever hurt you. He will handle whatever was done to you. And I'm talking about abuse, like sexual abuse, physical abuse, all of that. If someone's made you angry because they've said something wrong to you, forget it and move on. Forgive and move on. It's not worth it. And I know it's hard, especially for, again, someone like me whose first response is usually or wants to be something very sarcastic and very passive aggressive, but still get my point across. I really have to battle keeping my mouth shut sometimes, or speaking honestly from a part of me that is honestly just letting you know, hey, that really kind of annoyed me, or that hurt my feelings or something. And from a abuse survivor, a rape survivor, that's really hard, because you really do build a wall around that to where you have to survive on your own and not let anyone know that they hurt you. And I'm not saying I do it perfectly. I don't. I've gotten a lot better at it. I'm a lot better at saying, oh, wait a second, or ignoring it totally and forgetting it and moving on, or taking it to the Lord and saying, they made me so angry. I just, and I just vent it out to him. But my goal by doing that is to ultimately work towards forgiveness. But when you're deeply hurt with a form of abuse, it's hard to let that go and even actually, I guess, contemplate forgiveness. It's easy to be angry, if I'm being honest. It's very easy, and it's very hard not to. And I think people really have a kind of a warped sense of forgiveness. People think by forgiving, that means that what they did was okay. By forgiving means actually it just releases you from that pain and that trauma, and you can move on. It releases you from rage, from bitterness, from wearing this coat of anger that will become something twisted, and you will start to see it as kind of who you are, and people know not to mess with you and all this other stuff. But really, it just is bitterness. And my mind just went blank on the scripture about bitterness and what it does to you, but it will literally make your soul sick when you can't let it go. Anger can really cloud your judgment. I've seen and talked to people who have come out of it, and who also, they suffered with a lot of other things. They abused alcohol, drugs, manipulation, all the different things, because they really didn't understand that they needed to not only forgive the people that hurt them, but to release the anger from that hurt, release the anger from that abuse, because it's literally feeding them. And what is the scripture in John 1:20? Human anger does not produce the righteousness of God, of the Lord, or of God, or something like that. I'm not sure I got it exactly right, but righteousness, what that means is in right standing with God. So by you wearing this coat of armor, this anger, this keeping this deep inside you like that, you're not in right standing with God. You're off kilter, so to speak. And I've seen so many people say, and it blows my mind when I read comments or hear people say, you don't have to stop being angry that you were hurt. You don't have to stop being or using anger as a weapon. You don't have to forgive anybody. And I understand that a lot of these people aren't Christians, and it still just blows me away, because they'll say something like their counselor told them that they didn't have to. So by you not forgiving and being able to completely release it means that you are holding on. You're letting that hook stay in you. It's literally like it's just hooked your flesh and you're letting it stay in you. You think that all these things happen to you, so you have a right to be angry. You do have a right to be angry. It's righteous anger what happened to you, but how you handle it is where the sin comes in and where the problem comes in, because we start to take it in as our very own, as our right to be this way. As if you knew my past, you would understand why I'm so angry. If you knew my past, you would know why I would drink or why I would do drugs or why I would do this, that, and the other. The truth of the matter is, you've said it in your own words. Well, I may not know what happened in your past or in your childhood. You're trying to convince not only yourself, but everybody else that you have the right to behave badly because you're angry. And God doesn't want that for anybody. He wants his people free. And I can feel in my spirit people saying, I don't want to forgive. I don't think I should have to forgive. But you're not looking at it from the right perspective. You're looking at, if you forgive, that gets them off the hook. What you're not understanding is that hook in your flesh, when you forgive, gets you off the hook. You no longer have to carry around any of that. You get to be totally free. And I'm not saying that other things won't arise and you won't have more anger about something else that happens down the road in life. You will. We never fully arrive, in my opinion. I've said it 1,000 times, until we get to heaven. But the peace that comes after you let it go is something I cannot describe. See, people that carry anger like that wear it as a coat of armor, they have no peace. They have no peace. Their mind is not at peace. Their heart is not at peace. And their spirit and soul surely is not at peace. And when you choose to say, you know what, Lord, I don't know how to do this, but I'm going to trust you to help me get rid of this anger. I'm going to believe that I can be free, that I can have peace, that I can have joy and happiness when I let this go. I'm going to need you to walk me through it, Lord, and I'm going to hold the correct people accountable for what they did. And I'm not saying you have to go and confront them or anything like that. I don't know if that's the answer for you or not. For me, it wasn't, simply because I didn't know them. And even when I was going through all of this and really kind of dealing with anger, I don't know that the Lord would have allowed me to go and confront them in that full anger and walking that out. And it's not just anger towards other people, it's anger towards myself for mistakes that I made, for raising my children with anger, for not knowing any better, I could give you 1,000 reasons why I was angry, even at myself, and disliked myself because I couldn't get past the anger. And so there will probably come a self-forgiveness that you will need to also kind of accept. And that's just as hard as forgiving other people. But you can get there. And you will most likely have to find some scriptures to stand on and really just take it one by one. And the enemy will kick you when you're down. I promise you, he will throw salt on those wounds any and every time he gets the opportunity. He doesn't play fair, and he doesn't give you a minute to get up. How you cover yourself and protect yourself while you're going through this is staying in the Word and staying constantly communicating with the Lord. And speaking scripture out loud. It's not to say you won't have to battle some. Everybody does. And the enemy doesn't want you free. But one of the major things that I would really like to encourage you, if you are dealing with a lot of anger, if you have unresolved issues in your childhood, is to find a counselor, a good Christian counselor to walk you through it. I've noticed, and it still blows my mind, and maybe because I'm so pro counseling, I'm so I need help because I don't know how to do this or walk this out. It's astounding to me that people who are the most angry will not go to counseling. And it's not because they don't agree with counseling or believe in counseling. They absolutely do. They're terrified of it. They're terrified that when they walk in that counselor's office, they know they're going to have to give up things. And those are the very things they have believed they are founded in, and that keeps them safe, when in actuality, it doesn't. Sure, it may keep you safe from some hurt, but it doesn't keep you safe from passing that hurt out and on to others. And I'm not saying you do it intentionally or maliciously. Sometimes you do, but it just isn't the way of life. You just have no peace. I'll just put it that way. You have no peace. And at the same time, this lie that you need this anger feeds your heart and your mind. And it is a big step. I've come to realize that the hardest thing for some people is walking in the counselor's office. But can I just encourage you to do that, to take the first step? Are you going to come out of the counseling sessions different? Yes, you are. But that's a good thing. It's not even that you're going to be different. You are going to be different, but you're going to be better. And your heart will be better. And you will be able to form a relationship with the Lord that you've never been able to before, because you will finally start to see Him in the light we were always created to see Him in. He's not the reason why sin came into the world. He's not the reason why men are evil. We are. The enemy is. And we live in a fallen world that is a dark place, and that was never by design. We were never to be that way. And He can and will heal you from it, and He can and will change you. And it's a hard thing to accept that and to know that, and honestly to want that. It breaks my heart that people don't want to be free from this, because for them to be free from it, they honestly don't even know who they would be. And the truth is, again, you would be better. You would be who you were always meant to be. And I've told the story before, and I'll tell it again here, that one day I was praying after I had gone through most of all of my counseling with my past and my abuse, and dealing with the anger and giving up that dependence on self and not on the Lord. And I asked Him, I said, Lord, who would I have been if all of this hadn't ever happened to me? Would my personality be different? Would I be like those people I know that's never been abused? Doesn't mean they didn't have rough things happen, but they weren't fundamentally changed by abuse like I was. Who would have I been? Would I have been happy? And I heard Him speak as clear as day. It wasn't audible or anything like that, but I heard Him speak in my spirit. You are now who you were always meant to be. Meaning, I had done enough work to see the true person of who He intended me to always be. I'm never going to be the type of person that's like a pastor's wife. I don't carry that. There's a softness that comes with them that I don't have, and I was never supposed to have because that's never who I was supposed to be. But that doesn't negate that I still have a softness and a love in my heart for people and my desire to see them free from their past. It just means that I am who was always supposed to be. And I'm probably I think most people that come out of the type of abuse that I had were maybe a little bit harder, but where God sends us is a little bit harder. Does that make sense? It was always going to be this because I was always supposed to be this. And I love that. I love that I don't have to hold myself up and judge myself based on who this person is or this person or this person. That doesn't mean that I don't wish that I could be a little bit more loving and kind or see things from their expression or their point of view, because I talk to people who give me different points of view all the time. And I'm like, wow, I never even thought about that. Or, something like that. But it's not a comparison of, I wish I could truly be different. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. And I want to encourage you to find who you were always supposed to be, not who you are right now, holding on and wearing that anger as a coat of armor. That's not it. That's just not it. In fact, what is it in Ephesians? The Lord gives us the armor of God to put on, and not one of those passages does it say that anger is who you're supposed to, or what you're supposed to wear, excuse me. So I hope this encourages you to step out, to finally be able to say, okay, Lord, I'm not going to hold on to this anymore. It is terrifying me to give this up, but I know I have to because I want what she said. I want the peace. I want the calm. I want the joy. When you're so full of anger, joy comes very, very, very small and very, very tiny pieces, and it doesn't stay away for very long. In fact, the other day, my husband and I went out to eat, and he was being funny and saying something, and he was dipping his chip in dip, and he, I don't know, we always joke back and forth. He joked about something. I can't even remember what he said now. And I just reached over and slapped his hand, not hard, just enough to break his chip and his dip. And we both laughed so hard, and it was pure joy. And I realized in that moment, wow, I really do have pure joy. My husband has pure joy. It's funny. We can laugh about it. And it's just, I wish that I could explain to you, or you could feel the joy. I hope you can feel the joy. And it was just that little moment that again reminded me how free I really am in the Lord, that I could sit in that moment with my husband, laughing and joking around and just enjoy it, and didn't care who was around us, who noticed, who could hear us. It was just this pure joy moment. And I remembered in that second how I never had that for so many years before. And there's been a lot of little moments like that. It's just like, wow, Missy, you have joy, absolute joy. So I hope, again, that this podcast will let you know, or encourages you to know, that you'll be okay. That if you let go of that anger, you can really be okay. The joy of the Lord is our strength, not anger. So, with all that being said, I hope that you go and you find your way of releasing your anger and know that I'm praying for you. I pray over every podcast and every person that hears it, that it would encourage them, teach them, enlighten them, even challenge them to a certain degree, but that the Lord always comes through the microphone and you can always feel my heart, but most importantly, His. Please feel free to reach out and let me know if I can pray for you. I would love to. And I'm going to end it here. I love you guys. We'll talk later. Bye-bye.